All right, today we're tackling something huge. How you take those massive, ambitious, strategic goals and actually make them happen. And the secret isn't some grand, sweeping gesture. It's all about the power of small, deliberate actions. So let's just get right into it with a question I know we've all faced. You've been in that meeting, right? The energy is high, the big, exciting vision gets laid out, a total transformation, a game-changing program. But then, months go by and you look around, and well, nothing's really changed. Why on earth does this happen so often?
And here's the thing, right? The problem usually isn't the big idea itself. The vision could be absolutely brilliant. The failure happens in the doing, because the path from here to that brilliant future is just this vague, fuzzy cloud. It's too abstract. This quote from our source material just nails the problem perfectly. You've got leaders way up here talking about big outcomes like market leadership or operational excellence. But the teams on the ground, they live in a world of tasks, of code to write, tickets to close, calls to make, and that massive gap between the outcome and the task, that's a canyon where great strategies just fall in and disappear.
So yeah, let's give this thing a name. We can call it the grand vision problem. And it's all about that massive disconnect between the high-level goal and the actual day-to-day work. And look, this just breaks it down perfectly. On one side, you have leaders speaking the language of outcomes. That's the what and the why. But over on the other side, you've got the teams who need to know the specific tasks they have to do today. That's the how. And if you don't build a bridge between those two, they might as well be speaking different languages. Which leads us to a really important term for this whole discussion, the strategy execution gap. And it's not just a little crack, it's a chasm. It's that huge, empty space between a beautiful strategy on a slide deck and the real, tangible work that makes it happen.
Okay, so we've spent some time diagnosing the problem. We get it. Now, for the good part, how do we actually fix it? Let's talk about building that bridge across the gap.
Now this is the absolute key. We are not saying you should throw out your big, ambitious goals. No way. The answer isn't to think smaller. It's to take that big, inspiring strategy and chop it into pieces that are small enough for someone to actually do something about, like tomorrow morning.
So why is this so effective? Well, think about it. These small actions are powerful because they're measurable. You actually know if you're making progress. They're achievable, which builds confidence and gets people excited. They create real, actual momentum. And just like interest, that progress compounds over time, turning a bunch of small wins into a huge victory. It makes progress something you can actually see and feel. Okay, that all sounds good in theory, right? But what does it actually look like in the real world? Let's walk through 3 super common strategic goals and see how we can break them down into these powerful little actions. All right, here's a classic. Every single leader wants this, right? A high-performing team, a culture of learning. It's the dream. But you can't just put up a poster and declare that it exists. So how do you build it? You build it with daily habits. Look at these. It's not about a big project. It's about how you behave in every single conversation. Are you sharing knowledge? Are you challenging ideas with curiosity instead of judgment? It's about creating reusable patterns so people aren't starting from scratch every time. These are the small, repeated actions that literally shape a culture.
Let's try another one. Something a little more technical but just as big. Rolling out new architecture standards. This can feel like a huge top-down order that frankly everyone kind of hates and tries to get around. But the way you actually win is through these small, iterative cycles. You actually go talk to the people who will use the standards. You provide clarity and guidance, not just a book of rules. The daily work becomes about lowering friction, making it easier for everyone to make better decisions. That's how standards actually get adopted and stick.
And for our last example, let's talk about the big one, driving business innovation. I mean, innovation just feels massive and risky. So how do you make it happen without, betting the entire farm on one single unproven idea?
You get there with disciplined, tiny experiments. You run a small prototype. You launch a very targeted pilot program. And here's the most important part. You track what you learn from every single test. This approach builds confidence, it builds evidence. Real innovation rarely comes from a single lightning bolt of genius. It's built on a foundation of these controlled, learnable steps. I really want to stop on this quote for a second because it is so important. This is not about being less ambitious or thinking small. It's the exact opposite. It's about creating real, tangible, achievable momentum that pushes you towards that big ambition. It's the engine that actually drives progress. Now,
Here's the catch. For any of this to really work, for this system of small actions to take hold, you have to have the right environment. This approach can only thrive in a very specific kind of culture.
And this table just lays it all out, plain and simple. Over on the left, you have a blame culture. Psychological safety is low. People are terrified of making mistakes, so what do? They wait for permission. They don't take risks. But on the right, you have a learning culture. It's safe to try things, to experiment. The focus isn't on punishing errors, it's on valuing the effort, and, most importantly, what was learned. This is the kind of place that empowers people to take those small actions that drive everything forward.
So let's bring this all home. How do you take these ideas and use them to make your strategy real?
Well, it really just boils down to these three things. First, your job is to translate. Translate that big vision into actual motion. Second, you have to define those small, measurable, and meaningful steps that will create that motion. And finally, you have to foster. You have to actively build and protect a culture where progress is valued way more than perfection.
Because at the end of the day, here's what it all comes down to. A strategy on a slide is just an idea. It only becomes real when the people who have to do the work, when they genuinely believe they can succeed. And that belief isn't built overnight. It's built one small, aligned, and meaningful step at a time.
And that leaves us with one final question for you. Think about your biggest, most intimidating strategic goal right now, the one that feels a million miles away. Just forget the 5-year plan for a second. What is one small, concrete, measurable step you can take on that goal today?